Hey folks, Doug Blake with Body Design University. Welcome to another Saturday live NASM exam study. In today's video, we're going to move forward now to chapter 5. Just keep in mind, as we go through this material, not every chapter in the NASM textbook has the same level of priority when it comes to the number of questions they're going to ask you on the exam. So chapter 5, moderate priority. You'll see a couple of questions for sure, but don't spend a ton of time on chapter 5, even though it's really good information, lots of great material from a testing perspective. It's more on the moderate side of the number of questions you'll get when you take the exam. The other thing to remember is anytime we start a new chapter, I'm not going to go over it in this particular video, but we definitely want to make sure that the first thing you do from a studying perspective is go to the end of the chapter first. Always start at the end of the chapter, review the summary and the chapter highlights before moving back to the beginning of the chapter. As always, NASM has provided you with words, terms, that they put on the sidebar of each of the pages, and I'm going to show you that here as I get my screen up. Does everybody see my screen, right? Yes. So you should have gone through the back of the end of the chapter 5, the nervous musculoskeletal systems, and review the chapter highlights for sure. Those are all bullet points. So you go through those, make sure you're familiar with that material before you come back to the beginning now of the chapter. Of course, you can read the learning objectives. And so, as I was saying, each of the chapters, right throughout the entire textbook, they give you terminology. It's a good idea to go through it, at least look at it. What is the human movement system, right? The HMS, collective component structures that work together to move the body. So it's those three basic systems. As personal fitness trainers, knowing about the muscular system is important, right? But you also got to understand what the muscles are moving, which is the skeleton. Do you need to know every bone in the body? Of course not. That would be ridiculous. It's not necessary. By the way, what functionally operates the muscular system? It's the
Nerve.
nervous system. So that's why they put all three together. I think it's a good way to put this chapter. It is a. Have you guys been through chapter 5 already? Yeah, it's a pretty long chapter, right? It really is. They're putting 10 pounds of poop in a 5-pound bag when they did this chapter. So they probably could have done it over one more, maybe two more chapters, in my opinion, but they squeezed it all into chapter 5. So, introduction to the human movement system. As you're going through this, what are we looking for? When we're studying their textbook, we are looking for bullet points. Remember? Charts, tables, and figures. We're trying to be efficient. We don't have to read through everything in the book, but we're looking for those particular elements in the chapters that we can hone in on because we know that that's probably where they're going to get a lot of their questions from. Okay, so I open up the page. I've done my preliminary study in the back with the highlights, and I come through and I look and I go, okay, well, I don't see any bullet points or anything here. Go to the next. Oh, here we go. And this is what I'm going to kind of focus in on. There is a helpful hint box, which I definitely recommend you read through. And NASM is going to kind of give you an initial introduction of what's known as the kinetic chain. Now, they're starting with the nervous system, which is fine. And you'll notice that in this figure, they're giving you just a rough outline of the spinal column. So the cervical, right up towards the head and neck, thoracic spine, that's going to be the area in your quote thorax or the upper part of your chest or upper back area, down to your lumbar spine. Here's your hip joints, obviously knee joints, and then ankles. So if you count it, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and 6. What we do and what NASM will show you is that when you look at the skeletal part of this or the functional component of of these systems, we have what are known as kinetic chains, and they're gonna show you that, but they want you to understand kind of the basics of the human nervous system. I don't know if you guys have ever seen this drawing before of the neuron. This is a classic drawing that we use in just about every. I think I snagged this one for our workbook back in the BDU materials. I don't remember, but probably something very close to this, right? Do you need to know everything about the nerve cell? No. Okay, not from a testing perspective. So you look how fast we're moving through this. We move on to the next page. Um, Helpful hint, but you see, guys, you see what I'm doing? I'm not reading everything here. I don't need to. What I'm going to do is I'm going to move over to the right hand side and I'm going to look at all how many of these terms did you already know kind of what the definition was even before you opened this textbook? How many of these? Two, three, I don't know, maybe four. Four of these you might have at least have seen. Does everybody know what mitochondria are? Yeah, sure. Or if you don't know the exact definition, you're pretty close to it's something inside the cell. We used to call it the powerhouse of the cell. This is the part that uses nutrients to create energy, right? Commonly known as the powerhouse of this. Wow. Okay, great. That's cool. But you definitely want to look and at least read the definitions that they give you. It doesn't mean you're going to get a question about it because NASM doesn't generally ask you for definitional or definitions when they question you on their exam. Things are mostly situational. But I would definitely look at these. If you don't know what the word is, go ahead and click it and look at it, right? Then we are, of course, we're going to look at the helpful hint boxes, read that. And now they're going to give you the breakdown of the two parts of the nervous system, right? So the central nervous system, and they're showing you that. Does everybody see this? This is the brain stem and the spinal column. And then there's the peripheral nervous system, which is what? All of the nerves that come off of the spinal column and lead to the arms and the legs and the peripheral organs, things like that. So that's all you really need to know from there. And this should bring us pretty close to the end of this first lesson. This is a very brief introduction to the nervous system. Again, guys, don't read the text. You don't need to. We literally went through how many pages here in the last 20 seconds, 30 seconds. Read your definitions, right? So you got efferent pathways, interneurons, mechanoreceptors. Everybody see that? Make sense? Now, when we move into this next page, we have more charts and things like that to look at. And the reason I like this, because I'm a visual audiological type of learner, and you tell me, is it more helpful to see it in this scenario, right? Broken out into a picture or a chart or something like that? I know it is for me. Again, anytime you see a helpful hint box or a stretch your knowledge box, go ahead and read it. Okay. NASM did that for a reason. They actually want you to understand a little bit more about whatever it is they're discussing. Okay. So they're basically letting you know there are different subdivisions. There is the somatic nervous system. You see how we did it? We said there was a central, CNS, and the peripheral nervous system. But we can also subdivide the nervous system into the somatic, which you'll see on this page. So nerves that serve the outer areas of the body and skeletal muscles. Look at the word voluntary control. So the somatic nervous system as a subdivision, it provides for voluntary control of human movement. Y'all get that? Opposing the somatic is the what? Autonomic nervous system. Does that make sense? Y'all got this?
Yes.
Somatic, autonomic, CNS, PNS. Central nervous system, That's the structural, the brain, spinal column, the structural subdivisions of the nervous system, right? CNS, peripheral, all the nerves that go out to the body. But we can also talk about the nervous system from a sort of functional, right? Functionally, there are parts of your body that you have voluntary control over. And there's other parts of your body, like your internal organs and other areas, that you don't have control over. Thank goodness. Because if I had to worry about producing insulin from my pancreas from up here every time I ate food, I'd be in big trouble. You get it? So we have what's known as an an autonomic nervous system. I hope that makes sense. I'm just kind of giving you a little bit more of an explanation to help you navigate through this. But you can read it. Autonomic. You have also different subdivisions, and we call those two subdivisions the sympathetic nervous system and the parasympathetic nervous system. What's the difference? The sympathetic nervous system is that part of the nervous system that deals with the fight or flight. It's an excitatory system. Do you hear what I said? Excitatory. It's designed to give you the ability, however it's working, to get you to run away or to stand and fight. And then there's the parasympathetic nervous system, which is what? It is I could say relaxing, rest. They call it rest and digest. So that's an easy way to remember it. Fight or flight, rest and digest. Does that make sense to everybody? That's about all you need to know when it comes to this. So they're going to give you functions of the nervous system. Sure, if you want to read try this box, but sensory function, proprioception, you got to know. Okay, that's important. Moving on. Now we get, what do you do first? I always go here and I look at the definitions. Integrative function, motor. Oh, that looks familiar, guys. Look, muscle spindles, right?
Yeah.
Okay. What is the stretch reflex? Right? We talk about this with muscle spindles, Golgi tendon organs, right? Okay. Reciprocal inhibition, right? Autogenic inhibition, all of those words and terms you're going to see now. And you're going to go, oh man, I already learned that stuff. I already know it. So yeah, sure, you can see how this works if you want. This isn't going to be of any importance from a testing perspective, but now you get to mechanoreceptors. That is the terms. It's the term that is used to discuss things like the muscle spindle fibers. Mechanical. Do something to the muscle, and these receive, they're receptors. They receive that information and they send neurological impulses to the spinal column, sometimes up to the brain, back to the spinal column, back out to the muscles. Again, that's all covered in the BDU materials for sure. But you can read, I guess, if you want to go through this, but it's not that necessary. You already have the definition here. Look how fast I can go from one page to the next. Golgi tendon organs. By the way, don't be spending a whole lot of time on stuff you already know. Does that make sense? So if you want to look at these, I always like to look at pictures just to help me, right? If I don't have a full understanding, I can get a better understanding. Where are the Golgi tendon organs located? Well, this picture shows you. See the tendon? The muscular tendinal attachment. You've got joint receptors, and I'm just moving through fairly quickly. Nervous system life course, neuroplasticity, and neurocircuitry. Are you going to read any of this? Look, Terry, you going to read any of this? No. Why? Because there's no bullet points, and there's no pictures, and there's no charts and no tables. Read this, understand what those are basically, and then move on. Okay, physical activity and the nervous systems, right? Motor skills. Now, guys, what do you see? What do you see? Boop. Stop. Okay, well, there's probably something important here. The development of motor skills is best understood as a three-stage process. What are they? The cognitive, does this look familiar from Module 5? Huh? The cognitive learning stages, remember? Yes, no? Does anybody remember anything from the BDU stuff? So, stage one is cognitive. People are just learning a skill. The associative stage begins to understand, and then through practice, they'll refine it more and more until they get to the autonomous stage where the individual has mastered the skill. Terry, how old is the runner that you were training today? How old is she?
16.
Is she in the cognitive stage of learning how to run? Is she in the associative stage or the autonomous stage?
Associative,
Why?
because she understands what she's doing and why.
And has she mastered the skill of sprinting?
Well, yes,
No,
she has
no,
confidence. She
no,
knows, but she ain't mastered.
no. She's doing great. This
Yes,
is a this is a this is a really, really important thing for coaches to keep in mind. Until she has learned proper foot position as
yes,
she's moving forward. Is the foot underneath her for proper propulsion backwards, or is she too far forward that little bit? Has she learned the proper drag when she comes off the block? Has she perfected the height of her knee before she, you get what I'm saying?
yes.
The answer is probably
No,
no. But I tell you what, she's moving through that associative stage. Okay. You guys understand why I always recommend you watch the Olympics and you watch the highest level of athletes because they are generally in the autonomous stage of their skill. And that's why we're so impressed, right? And that's why we're amazed, me, when somebody runs a 9,800 and then the next season runs a 9,700 or a 9,600. That is very, Terry, that's very impressive.
yes, it is.
That's a person working through the autonomous stage. Now let's back that off to the average person who feels a little bit in their biceps when they're doing dumbbell curls. But as they develop more and more sort of you could use the term mind muscle connection, what starts to happen? Even with the same weight, as their skill develops with the movement patterns and the contraction of their muscles, right? What happens? They start to move along that continuum to the point where they actually start feeling it more. And their overall neuromuscular facilitation goes up. Isn't that cool? Man, I'm so old. I can't even remember when I first started this, but all I do know is that I was always super excited learning how people can continue to get better. It's why, like you, Terry, I went into dealing with athletes.
Yeah,
Um, so that's the autonomous, and that's what NASM is trying to kind of get to you here is that when we deal with average clients, most people will start, and you'll be training them. They'll be in the cognitive stage, right? By the way, some clients, I've had clients train them for a year. They never got out of the cognitive stage because for whatever reason, their neuromuscular systems were challenged. Let me put it to you that way. And then, by the way, some people who move very quickly from the cognitive stage, right? Don't you know people like that?
yes,
Probably yourselves, Katie, probably yourself. You probably moved, and one of the reasons you like exercising and weightlifting is because you had this higher developed level of your neuromuscular system. We find that a lot. If you're good at something, generally what happens? You tend to gravitate towards it more and more, right? And that's really what you're seeing here. So the three stages. Here's some training tips. This is a good one, by the way. Definitely want to read that. It's really helpful. And of course, online they have this here, but that's not necessary. And that essentially takes care of that first lesson. Now, please understand that if you have the textbook, this is going to be lesson two. We'll do that next week. But if you have the textbook, it's not by lesson, but because I show you guys the online version, NASM breaks it up into that. But in your textbooks, you guys will go through those lessons that way. So, any questions on this first area in chapter 5? Any questions on this? I would I would hope you guys would see it for what it is. Interesting, really interesting, very cool material, but not really difficult from a memorizations perspective. Correct?
Right.
Correct.
Okay. So, as always, guys, thanks for coming on board with us this Saturday. Please, if you have not done so, go ahead and subscribe to our channel. Remember to, guys, what do we do? How do you do it? You do the thumbs, you like it? Is that how that works? Like it,
Yeah.
share it. What else are you supposed people watching this going, this guy knows
Mm.
nothing about how to do that. Okay, so just get in there, subscribe to the channel. It's all good material. What else, Terry?
I just wanted to ask, are we gonna have a session the Saturday after Thanksgiving?
No.
Okay.
But we'll go, but I'll let you guys know that. But the answer to that is going to be no.
Okay.
Yes, but I'm glad you brought that up. This way, everybody else that's watching this video knows that as well. Look, guys, have a great weekend. I appreciate you all coming on board, and we will see you next week. Right? Take
Later.
care,
Bye.
guys. Bye.